Samir and Reese are both older. They replaced the actors with older kids. So for Samir and Reese, and the actor that plays Reese, well, I'm gonna reveal later in the end of the video that he gets a very big role with Disney later. But anyways, that's besides the point. So Mandira gets a call from Sarah that Mark's been sent over to the Middle East to cover the war in Afghanistan, and they're eating dinner at the Garrick's place before Mark leaves. You know, and then Mark goes to Afghanistan and his death is shown off screen. Sarah gets the call in a deleted scene that Mark was killed, and the funeral takes place later, and, they're all paying their respects, you know. Several older friends of Reese from a high school, I think, in Banville, comfort Reese, you know. I mean, middle schoolers and high schoolers can be friends, but they just never explain how these high schoolers are interested in meeting up with this middle schooler, how they all became friends. It's never explained in the film. I don't think the writers care that much to elaborate on the subject, but that's beside the point. Samir spots Reese after the funeral and tries to comfort him, but then Reese pushes Sam aside because he's obviously upset about what happened to his father. He's pissed off at the Khans, blaming them for the death of his father, blaming the Muslims for the death of his father. It's understandable because his father was killed by jihadist terrorists. So, I mean, we don't know who killed Mark Garrick, but it's pretty obvious the jihadist terrorists were the ones who killed him. So it's obviously that's obviously why Reese is angry about that. It makes sense. It's understandably angry about his father and everything, but that's not a reason to push away your best friend you've known for 6 years. 6 years just because your father got killed. Understandably, you're upset about that, but you shouldn't be blaming your best friend for that. And Reese continues to avoid Samir at school, tries to avoid talking to him. And Samir tries to confront him about that. And Samir and Rizvan play basketball a little bit, and and then Samir gets his new shoes. He ends up wearing them to school one day after soccer practice. So, he tries to talk to Reese again. But then the older kids that Reese befriended come over there and they tell Sam to stop talking to him. They tell him to, run home to his mommy, and then they taunt Sam a little bit, push him around, bully him, and harass him. Then they end up throwing a soccer ball at Sam's chest. Then Sam throws the soccer ball back at the bully and hits him right in the eye, And then the four bullies all confront Samir. They all attack and punch and kick him for a few minutes, while Reese tries to stop the fight. Even though Reese doesn't want anything to do with Samir, he still doesn't want these bullies attacking Samir, his best friend. Samir gets kicked, attacked, and punched multiple times by the bullies, while Reese tries to stop them. And then Reese finally breaks up the fight and gets them all to stop hitting Sam, and then Samir says, "Screw you, assholes!" And then the main bully, the leader of the gang, ends up kicking the soccer ball into Samir's stomach, and it causes him to go unconscious, and he dies later in the hospital. And then the gang threatens Reese if he tells anybody about it that he'll face the same consequences. So they obviously don't want Reese to report it. So by that's how they keep Reese in line and make him keep his mouth shut. So Samir's rushed to the hospital. He dies, and then a detective named Detective Garcia tells Madeira that the reason why Sam died is because he was a Muslim, and his father was a Muslim, and that's why they killed him, And Rizwan is confused because being Muslim isn't a bad thing. That's what he said. Said it during the voiceover. And then Mandira told Rizwan she no longer wants anything to do with him, that he has to move out. And that if he wants her to be back in her life, she sarcastically tells him that he has to tell the President of the United States that my name is Khan and that I'm not a terrorist. So Rizwan sets out on his journey to try to find the President, George Bush at the time. He tries to find Bush, but he ends up going from one state to another trying to find the President, but he keeps failing to meet him, Obviously, because the President is top security around him. I mean, he's not going to be alone, but with the public after what happened to, President Lincoln, President Garfield, McKinley, Kennedy. 4 presidents got assassinated on the job, so obviously they're not going to let anybody just come up to him and talk to him, obviously, unless it's really, really important. So obviously they're not going to do that. Obviously, not surprising. But anyways, yeah, so Rizwan sets out on his journey. He ends up going to some church in Georgia, and he ends up helping out the people there. It's an African-American church, and Rizwan talks about Sam and how much he misses him, and it talks about talks about he just didn't know what to say after he was killed on November 27, 2007, At the age of 13, he was murdered, so, he just talks about, he just didn't know what to say and all that, but they end up singing afterwards after he talks about that, "We shall overcome," and, that's actually a pretty decent song in my opinion. It's actually not that bad, honestly. It's actually a pretty melodious song in my opinion. And Mandira ends up trying to search for the boys who killed Samir. She ends up putting posters, who killed Samir Khan. She's sending out posters, and Reese is meanwhile sitting there, sitting there silent because he knows what happened. Obviously can't say anything because he'll suffer as well if he says anything. So obviously he's keeping his mouth shut. Finally, Khan goes over to see the president, and the president's like in, I forgot which town it was in the film because it's been such a long time since I last saw My Name is Khan. But anyways, Khan ends up seeing the president, he ends up yelling, "My name is Khan, I'm not a terrorist," and someone thinks that he actually says he's a terrorist when he said he wasn't a terrorist, so the security guards end up confronting Rizwan, and Rizwan ends up getting arrested, and then the police are questioning him, and Rizwan says that his wife told him to meet the president, and obviously the cops are not believing that, obviously, not surprising, so they keep him detained, they keep asking him questions, and everything. And actually earlier, before that, Rizwan tried to expose some terrorists that were threatening people. So an Indian reporter got involved and tried to interview on this college. Indian students tried to get involved and try to interview Rizwan and everything. And Rizwan exposed the names of some of the terrorists, so it shows that Rizwan wasn't a terrorist. So they let Rizwan go. And then later, Rizwan ends up helping the church again when their church gets flooded When their church gets flooded. So Rizwan heads back to Georgia, helps the church when the church gets flooded, and he ends up telling them that, and then they asked him a long, tiring journey, Rizwan, what kept you going? He said his son's soccer shoes, his son Sam, and his best friend Reese, they love to play soccer. And then Reese finally confesses to Mandira after hiding the truth for more than a year about what happened to Samir. The older boys get arrested. Reese gets leniency from Mandira, for his mother's sake. Sarah's sake, and so then Sarah ends up thanking her for Reese, and and tells Mandira to let go of her hate because her husband was killed her husband lost his life because of hate, and she told Mandira to don't lose Rizwan, just let go of that hate, So Mandira goes back to the place where Samir was killed, the soccer field where he was killed, and she sends up balloons up into the sky, and then meanwhile, Rizwan ends up Rizwan knows the president will change in a few days. Barack Obama will become president, so he tries to meet up with the president before that happens. And Rizwan and Mandira see each other again, but before they can reconcile, and one of the followers of the terrorist that Rizwan reported ends up stabbing Rizwan, in the stomach, and Rizwan ends up getting sent to the hospital. He ends up going unconscious with memories flooding through his mind, and flashbacks, But Mandira and Rizwan and Mandira end up meeting each other again in the hospital. Then after Rizwan is just discharged from the hospital, he ends up he gets a chance to finally meet the president, and then the president tells him, "Your name is Khan. You're not a terrorist." And the actor who played President Obama, Christopher B. Duncan, actually had an appearance on the Jay Leno show. He ended up portraying Obama on the Jay Leno show. Christopher B. Duncan looks a lot like Obama, honestly. If you actually saw Christopher B. Duncan, a picture of him, he looks very similar to Obama, honestly. But yeah, Christopher B. Duncan ends up telling Rizwan that your name is Khan, you are not a terrorist. And then Rizwan is showing him a picture of Samir, that his son wasn't a terrorist either. And the president tells Mandira that he's sorry for her loss, and all that. And then Mandira makes peace with the whole situation. She silently tells Sam in her mind that her Khan achieved what her hate couldn't achieve and all that. So they make peace. There was a flashback of Rizwan, Mandira, and Sam at the end of the movie, and then, the Khans end up going home, So it's actually it was a pretty decent film in my opinion. I thought it was pretty good. Definitely very good in my opinion. Suburb, honestly. If I had to make a list of my top 10 favorite movies, My Name is Khan would be on the list without question, honestly. There's a lot of things we can learn from the movie, showing that not just because a person is of a different religion, that doesn't make them any worse of a person than you are. Just because you disagree with their opinion doesn't mean that they're worse than you are, and doesn't mean that you're better than they are, obviously. So there's a lot we can learn from that movie, honestly. A lot of things we can learn from My Name is Khan. It's actually it's a very good film. I recommend it if you want to see it, honestly. It's a good movie. There's a lot of parts in English. You can get the subtitles from the DVD. But those are just my thoughts about the Bollywood film, the 2010 Bollywood film, My Name is Khan, Shah Rukh Khan played Rizwan Khan very well, and Kajol also played Mandira Khan very well, portrayed her characters very well. And Rizwan, Shah Rukh Khan playing an autistic man with Asperger's syndrome is actually something pretty interesting and worth checking out, honestly. But those are just my thoughts, honestly. My Name is Khan, in my opinion, is honestly a very good film. I recommend it if you want to see it yourself. Just buy the DVD off Amazon, I already got the DVD for My Name is Khan, and I thought it was a very good film, in my opinion. My Name is Khan is actually a very good movie in my opinion. Those are just my thoughts. My Name is Khan is a good movie, but those are my thoughts on the film My Name is Khan. Those are just my thoughts. Yeah, stay safe, everybody. It's on the Legend 826 out.